Session 4 in the door. And oh, here it is. It's always like right where I'm not looking. Welcome in, everybody, to session 4 of Living Magic for October. And I greet you at a unique moment. How did Gandalf say it in Lord of the Rings? I am here at the turning of the tide. Really happy to see you. Really excited about tonight's class. Very, very happy. I'm not health-wise 100%. My stomach's been really wonky for the last few days, so but I'm definitely able to do class, and then I'm going to take a little bit of a break tomorrow. I shouldn't be drinking as much caffeine as I am, but I need all the caffeines right now. How are you guys? Danusia said, I gotta go get my drum. Hold on. Hold my beer. It would be really cool if you have a drum to play with tonight. Our little drum from our kit this month plays better with your mallet than with your hands. Although my fingernails work just fine. You will find I tend not to. I get these beautiful drums made, and they come with these incredible embellished strikers, and I go boop, and I lose them because I don't use them. So, because I like to play with my hands. Tonight's class, we are going to talk about the worksheets. So if you have your sound healing worksheets for October 2023, we are going to, I am going to talk about what's on the worksheets, but most of my notes are not there, and they're just a hot buttered flaming mess, but I can read them. That's all that matters. I looked down at my notes and I'm like, because I did one layer of prep over the weekend, and then I went back in today with a different pen, and I went over like this morning, and I was just like, what am I even doing? And we're going all over the place tonight. So anyway, you have notes for tonight's class, and then as always, there's the Athena liftoff, right? So you can take notes. We also take notes for you. It is, Jesus. Spirits are with us. Is anybody new tonight? I don't think we have newbies tonight, but Karen usually lets me know. I usually the 4th session. Yeah, here's the script, and here's me just going. But I will be on script for a second because there's actually really good information here about drumming in different cultures, and I think it's interesting because I am a history, mythology, culture geek, and so I do want to walk you through some of the information here, but it's just not going to be the juice that boosts your caboose, if you know what I mean. The spirits are here. Yeah, whenever we drum, it's a party. It's my favorite thing to do. We are in a, today is the, I always have to look, the 25th. Samhain is Tuesday. We're celebrating on Wednesday because honestly, now that my kids are older and they don't want to like go trick-or-treating with me or like hang out with me on Halloween night, this is one of the first years I get to do my own ceremony, so I'm really excited about it. Might go live with you for a little while, you know, if you're around. But I was thinking the last couple of days, I'm like, you know, the last time I really did big solitary Samhain ceremony or anything with like a coven or a, because I have done coven ceremony, and anything with like a group was before I got pregnant, which is 17 years ago. So it was like, whoa, I could actually do my own thing this year. Cackling like a old witch myself, right? So anyway, I'm still kind of making my plans for what I want to do. I know, isn't that fun? So anyway, I might just pop on and impromptu on Halloween evening and see what you're doing. A lot of you have little ones or nieces or nephews or grandchildren, and when you have kids around, it becomes about them. And then, so this is kind of like that turn in my life where I'm like actually being with my kids' ages, being with your mom is like not the cool thing to do on Halloween. So, what will I do with myself? I'll find something. I am going to be sharing music from my SoundCloud playlist tonight called Drum Circle. God, there's so many playlists. It would make you think I haven't had anything to do for the last 10 years. Drum Circle. So there's a couple of songs. There's like 6 on there, 4, 7, that I like to drum to. These are great, easy tracks to drum along to. And because I'm going to be teaching you a little bit tonight about drumming, one of the easiest ways to learn how to drum is to drum along to music. So I do want to give you a heads up. If you want to be listening to the same music that I'm playing, I would recommend that you just listen along. But if you want to know where to find those tracks, it is a playlist in SoundCloud called Drum Circle. Do you guys have any questions? I'm so excited to see you tonight. I am. I mean, drumming is one of my favorite things to do, favorite things to talk about. I have a lot of other things to talk about tonight. And we get to talk about shamanism, which is going to be more of a focus next year, candidly, in next year's programs than it has been this year. This year we've talked about it, and next year is not a program in shamanism, but a lot of the things that we're talking about are kind of tied to what most people consider a shamanic practice. And I can't tell you too much more than that. I am, by the way, wearing my graduation pendant. It's a little hummingbird that says Living Magic 2023. You know how we made you the little hexagons for Soul Shift? So we did one with a hummingbird this year for Living Magic, and I think that's coming on Saturday. So just a little heads up. Is this your favorite class? Aw, you made my day, Tara. That makes me so happy. I'm trying to drink all my Celsius because I don't want to put Diet Coke in there. And that's a lime from Alba's cocktail class, because I cut up lemons and limes, and I love lemon and lime so much. Do you put lemon and limes in everything? I put it in everything. Water, my sodas, my kombucha, my morning turmeric shot, which I did today and thought about all of you. So I don't want to throw them away. And I have one more here, so I'll just kind of squeeze it in there now and get the party started. It's so good for you. Citrus, she was talking about the compounds in citrus that are so good for you. So if you missed that class or from Monday, make sure you go back and watch that, because I thought it was a really interesting, funny, but interesting conversation. I learned a lot. I'm your favorite internet class. You have no idea how much that means to me. Honestly, that really means a lot to me, because it's, there's so many different classes that people take, and everybody's got a different teaching style. So really thank you for your sweet, sweet words. I'm excited. Some of your plants get lemon juice. I like that too. Okay, so let's start here, just because it's easier. You want to put Tanqueray in there? Yeah, it's funny. I can't these days. Sometimes I'll have a little cocktail, when I get home in the evening, but especially when I've got like complex notes, and as I'm getting older, I just can't do it. I can't think straight, honey. And I am drinking Diet Coke with lime. Okay. Just can't do it. The lime and the coconut. Oh, I love that movie too. Okay. I'm going to turn the music down just for a few minutes, and then we'll come back to the music when we start to play. And Karen can guide you to find the class with Alba, if you're looking for that. Okay. History of shamanic drumming. First of all, I want to talk about what shamanic drumming is. Why it's different from other type of drumming. I'm not necessarily a drummer. Like, I wasn't trained as a percussionist. I've always loved percussion. Even from my days of like being on the flag team and doing drill team in school, when the drum line would come out, like my heart would start racing, and we would always do our routines with the drum line as a background. And always loving music, right? I've always been a lover of music. One of my boyfriends in high school was a drummer, so I just for me, drumming has always evoked this kind of tribal, like my heart starts to beat in the rhythm or the cadence or the in alignment with it, but it's not my training. But I did find that as I came into my spiritual training, which started, as I've told most of you, but some of you are newer, and when I was about 18, when I was 15 and a half, which is the legal age to get a job, I got a job because I wanted spending money, and I spent all my spending money on books about metaphysical stuff, and I started reading about drumming. And I started reading about drumming primarily because I was reading about how practitioners, in particular pagan practitioners, would drum at the new moon and the full moon to drum down the moon, right? Draw down the moon. So I was like, God, did I do that with a drum? So I started getting really interested in it. At the time, of course, having a drum of my own, there was no way. Like, I could barely afford the book about the drumming, let alone a drum. I was like, wouldn't that be cool to have a drum one day? So that's really a neat thing that now we make drums for you, and I work with people who create drums for me, which is really special. So it's dreamy. And I'm lucky to have a good selection of them, and I'm going to be playing a couple of different drums for you tonight to give you a sense of different kinds of sounds. And I also brought my rain disc just in case as a nice kind of counterpoint, because we're going to be talking about the elements tonight too. So if you have a rain disc in your collection, that's a cool tool to have. Nothing is required for tonight. In fact, if you have no sound tools, you might just want to enjoy tonight and then see afterward if you start feeling called to get a tool for me or anybody else, right? But sometimes it's nice just to participate, especially if you're learning, and just go, I don't have any tools yet, but like, what do I think I want? You might end up finding that you're much more drawn to a water disc or a rain disc because the element of water pulls you more than the drum, which tends to be more of an earth element tool, or a rain stick. So whatever you've got is cool. And again, if you just want to be here now and enjoy the class, when I'm drumming and calling in directions and working with directions tonight, you might actually consider tonight more of a meditation than anything else. So you don't have to drum along or even have any tools to enjoy tonight's class. Yeah, and Rhonda's reminding us, because I've always told you this too, if you have nothing else, grab a bottle of vitamins or Advil or Tylenol and shake it. It's a fantastic rattle. Sometimes you gotta work with what you have. And when I've hosted drum circles and stuff in the past, and people have been like, I want to come, but I don't have any sound tools. It's like, bring your Advil. shake your money maker, honey. Shake your Advil bottle like your mama made it. Or your vitamins or whatever you've got. You can also take an empty vitamin jar or vitamin container and fill it with rice. Not all the way to the top. You want to leave some space. That's a cool rattle. Have you done that before? So if you've got an old empty bottle and some rice, you do have a rattle. You didn't know it. Beans. If you've got dried beans, I always have dried beans because I love making like ham and bean soup. You've got a shaker, and I'm sure you've got a jar. Dump your vitamins out for a minute, put the rice in there. So anyway, I just want to remind you that you do have tools, even when you think like, oh, I don't have anything. And it's like, yes, you do. You just got to be creative sometimes. So shamanic drumming is different from the drum line that I grew up loving, is different from drums that you hear in traditional music and rock and roll and all the kinds of music that we're used to growing up with, because the intention is different, and usually the rhythm or the cadence, what we call the cadence, is different. And a lot of times the tone is different. It tends to be deeper, what we call a gong tone or vibration. And the intention is to take you into what's known as a trance state. Now, this is not on your worksheet. Is it? I don't think it is. Oh, it is. I don't know that we called it trance. No, we called it altered state. I call it trance. That's the goal of shamanic drumming. So the goal of shamanic drumming is you're sitting here now, like listening to me, and you're thinking, got your thinking cap on. And then if I take you into a trance state, you're not going to be really so much thinking anymore as you will be being. It takes you into a state of what we call, on the worksheets and in our practice, altered consciousness, right? So it's taking you from this here now moment into kind of a softer and less consciously aware state of awareness, okay? Now, my favorite field of psychology that I studied when I was in graduate school, and some of you have studied it too, is called depth psychology. And what depth psychology talks about is the subconscious mind, okay? And it's fascinating to me when I look back, because I finished my PhD in 2003, so it was 20 years ago in May that I graduated. And I was taking these classes. I took a full seminar, and then I had a professor who was an expert in depth psychology, Jungian archetypal psychology at USC. And I remember thinking, like, this is my favorite class I've ever taken. And now I look and I'm like, now I know why. Because it really was, she didn't call herself a shaman, but thinking back about her now, she has passed away since, but thinking back about her now, I'm sure she was practicing some stuff. We never talked about it. She never talked about it, but she was definitely one of my favorite mentors in my doctoral program. And then I had a colleague too that I taught with at the University of San Diego who, again, expert in depth psychology, and she used to go to the Amazon once a year. She would take 2 weeks off every March and go to the Amazon and work with shaman. And so she and I did talk more consciously about the work that she did. And then, but she didn't practice that specifically at the University of San Diego. She practiced a form of leadership that we can talk about tonight if we get to that, and it's interesting too. But anyway, she practiced leadership studies and had a PhD, but she used to go down and work with these shaman. And I'm telling you all of this because there's a real link between what we're talking about today and the field of clinical psychology, which is there's a level of awareness underneath your conscious awareness. And I'm sure you're like, like we know this. But what exists in that world is what I want to talk about for a second. And we haven't really spent time on this. And like I said, we will spend more time on this next year. What exists in that world of conscious awareness under your waking state, it's sort of like who you are under the shell or the facade of who you present to the world. Like, you know, Athena Paracus is like how the world knows me, but under that is a world of archetypes, right? It's a world of your subconscious. It's a world of what Jung would call the imago, right? The imaginary world. And one of the things I love about children is that they live there. You don't have to talk to kids about how to pretend, right? Pretend that you're a teddy bear and you're, cuddling up with a lion or whatever, and kids will be like, okay. But if I say that to you, you're like, pretend I'm a what? Or like, pretend you're a lion and you're, walking through the jungle, and the kids will immediately go roar and stuff. Kids take 2 seconds to invoke an imago to work in the imaginary world, whereas adults are like, what is she talking about? But the shamanic world is an archetypal world, and in depth psychology, the reason this is so important is it is much easier to understand and to tap into your psychic gifts and to even develop a framework for your own human experience when you work with the imaginary world, when you work with archetypes. They call it depth psychology because it's what is underneath your awareness of who you are in the world. Like, underneath all of that, the deeper state of who you are is really an archetype. And I want you to think for a second, even just now, like, what are some archetypes that you really resonate with? Now, people who work with the tarot immediately go to the major arcana, which is entirely archetypal, right? The star, the moon, the high priestess, the hierophant, like we immediately go, and those are fantastic archetypes to work with if that's your familiarity level, right? Oh yeah, I know the major arcana. Then you already are working with the imaginary world. And one of the beautiful things about the major arcana of the tarot, and again, I'll bring this back to drumming in a second, go with me for the journey, is that every symbol on those cards has meaning, right? So it's not just you look at the figure first, and you look at the number, and you look at the order, right? Because the major arcana is the fool's journey, right? From complete innocence to complete experience, right? So with every card, the fool gains a card. Like, oh, now I'm this, now I'm that, right? Now I'm I go from being the fool to being the high priestess. Well, what does that mean? You know, what did I have to gain? Like, I go from being the fool to the magician. So I've got nothing, and then all of a sudden I've got these tools. Well, what do I do with earth and air and fire and water and wands and pentacles and cups and, you know? So these are fantastic ways of thinking about archetypes. I would like for you to think about what your archetypes are just for a minute. And if you are a note taker, maybe write down some of the major archetypes that you identify with. What's interesting for me is I always identify with not just human archetypes. Like, I do identify with the mother archetype for sure. And I've always identified with the mother archetype even before I had children. You know, everybody in my life used to joke, like, you treat your students like they're your kids before I had kids. And I did. If they didn't show up to class, I would worry about them. And you know what I mean? Like, if they were having personal problems, I would stay after it and listen to them and give them extra time on tests when they weren't feeling good. And like, just, you know, I was a very maternal teacher. So I've always identified with the mother archetype as nurturer, as guardian, as creator, right? All of those archetypes have always resonated with me. And I've always seen our planet also as being like my mother. So like I identify with that archetype for myself, and then I also identify our planet as having a set of archetypes too. I do. I worry about you guys too. You know, and look, I mean, I had many mentors say, you can't be a good teacher and be a mom at the same time. And I now would go back and say that's absolute BS. I think the best teachers care about you as a human being. Truly. I've never had a good teacher who didn't actually care about my life. And yeah, you don't have to have children to be maternal. In fact, you can be a fur mommy, which I have been all my life. And once again, people said, oh, having animals isn't like having children. And then I had children, or animals and then children. I'm like, it's exactly the same. First, they pee everywhere. They keep you up at night. They drive you crazy. They have no boundaries. Like, it was totally good preparation for having children. But anyway, so that's one archetype, right? Or the teacher archetype, or, and then there's archetypes that I've tried to step into at different times in my life or step out of, right? I remember very consciously, wanting to step in at different times in my life into more of like a temptress archetype. Cause I didn't really grow up understanding what it meant to, this might sound funny, like what it meant to like desire or be desired or anything like that. My parents did not have kind of like a close physical relationship, so I didn't really have that modeled for me. So I was always kind of like, what does it mean to be like sensual or sexual or in a relationship? I didn't really ever see like examples of like touching or kissing or holding hands growing up. So I would like consciously try to step into that archetype. And then there were times in my life where I thought I was too much in that archetype, so I tried to step back from that archetype. Like now I want to be more like academic, which is an archetype, right? And be taken seriously and all those things, right? So, and then there's other types of archetypes. Like I've always identified as a cat. I like to be alone a lot. I play with my hair, which is kind of like my version of licking myself. I like eating little bits all day long. I love naps, and I do what I want to do, and I don't follow anybody's rules. So I've always kind of thought of myself as like part cat. Some people identify with dogs, right? Very like just follow you around all the time and like, you know, like to have more of like a schedule and things, where cats don't like that. So look at the feed. This is fun, right? Like mediator, fool, rebel, victim. The magician has always intrigued me. It's my life path card in the major arcana. And I've always played with that idea of what does it mean to be a magician. Magician has always felt like more accurate to me than witch, which I don't think the word witch is bad, because it's the root word of witch is wisdom, right? It's just I don't like the connotations that get attached to it in our society, so that's why I don't use it a lot, because it's just you say it and it's like it's got all this stuff attached to it. The word itself, if people call me that, I'm just like, great, whatever you want to call me is great, whatever box you need to put me in. Yeah, and so then crone, which I'm stepping into cronehood, right? And kind of enjoying that journey too, which is exciting because it comes with sometimes more respect, right? Wolf, for sure. trickster energy, wolf, coyote. We had 2 coyotes in the field across from my house last night, and they're just howling and like, just crazy, beautiful energy. Hermit is a great archetype too. And one of the things I love about the hermit isn't just that the hermit is alone, but that the hermit is a wayfinder, right? A light bearer. And so the hermit is the one who says, I'll go first. I'll find the pathway and then I'll bring you with me, which has always been really exciting. So yeah, I don't, and look, for this question, there are no right answers and there are no wrong answers. I just want you to be aware, because when we go to the wheel of the year, I'm going to give you a lot of archetypes tonight that align to, and not just archetypes, but energy lines that align to these different directions on our wheel. And I really want you to see maybe some patterns of how the different phases and stages of your life now and in the past, and maybe some that you can anticipate in the future, align you to the great wheel, to the 4 elements, which I think is really, really cool. And I'm telling you right now, this week has been the longest month of my life. It really has. It's been a good week, but it's been weird. Okay. So shamanism is partly, not entirely, but partly the study of taking you from your conscious state of awareness, like right now I am your teacher and I am teaching you something, to a collective and subconscious state of awareness where I can be more than that. And it allows me to see you as more than that. It's one of the things I love about shamanic practice in general is and let's take the word again, because shaman has all kinds of archetypes attached to it, or connotations attached to it too, and some of them are helpful and some of them are not. So let's just call it archetypal. It allows you to see me as other things too. All right, so not just your teacher, but mother, cat, magician, I don't know, whatever else we can think about tonight. Okay. And so if we can both see each other as more than just our roles, and we've talked about this so many times in the different iterations of classes, right? See the soul, not the role. Remember all of that stuff from last year, which I still think is one of the best little teaching points I've brought you in a long time. If we can see each other beyond the roles that we play, we give each other a certain freedom to be and to become, and our magic expands, right? Because the reality is, and I've told you this before, but it was one of the most interesting conversations I've ever had with my sister was after my mom died. And we had this conversation about, like, why isn't she around, or why don't we feel her more? And I said to my sister, remember, her soul has been so much more than just our mom. She lost a child in between my brother and me. Is that right? Yeah. So I'm like, so first of all, the first thing she probably did was want to go and find her baby, right? Like, now that she's in the other world. And then she had other lifetimes, like, where she may not have even been a mom or our mom, or known who we were, or had other, may have been an animal. You know what I mean? So now she has to cross all these timelines and go find her other webs and entanglements and lineages, and how cool is that for her? But like, us waiting around going, hey mom, come back, is kind of like so 1 or 3 dimensional. It's not an awareness of like how big our spirits are. And when you hey seriously, when you cross and you go back to the one source, to the all that is, we we'll all have to go back to that archetypal world of unified consciousness, right? Where like, I'm not, so if my kids are sitting around going, I miss mom, how come she doesn't knock on the door in the morning or whatever? It's like, well, because she's busy, right? She's got a lot of stuff going on the other side. I always think of it as like a big grand reunion, but it's because of these archetypes. It's because you've been a mother and a father and a sister and a lover and a king and a queen and a destroyer and all these things in all these lifetimes, right? So you've been a warrior. You've also been probably a victim and a student and a God knows what you've been and what you've done and all of these things, right? So you have played all of these different roles. So even if you're not conscious of them right now, yeah, and that's why, well, I don't, my mom's around. I can sense her sometimes, but not all the time. She's busy. If all I do is hang out around my office after I leave one day, that tells me the other side isn't that interesting. Hopefully there's a whole bunch of things to see, like Disneyland, but forever, ever, ever, right? So anyway, so what shamanic drumming does, the intention of it, is to bring you into this archetypal state. One of the things I also want you to think about as I'm teaching is, in shamanic journey work, we often say like power animal or animal spirit ally, because usually before you start a shamanic journey, and I'm not doing shamanic journey with you tonight, but we will be doing a type of shamanic journey together in Elder Council coming up on Monday. And then we have Samhain on Wednesday. So there'll be some journey opportunities coming up. But a lot of times when you do shamanic journey work, and I've taught you this before, a lot of practitioners will say, well, there's usually one animal that comes to like guide you, right? There's usually one animal that shows up the most often to be your ally, or something you see the most in nature. Coyotes have been showing up a lot in my world this year, more than ever before. Very few hummingbirds around this year for me, which is interesting because they are usually always around. There have been a few, but not like 100 like last year, right? This year it's been all this coyote stuff coming up, which is interesting, and we can look at that. Crows for days all around, right? And then when I go into journey, it's almost always, interestingly enough, either big finned creatures like whale or dolphin will come, which is interesting because I'm not a water person and I don't enjoy I don't want to be in a boat and see a whale up close. Like, that's not interesting or helpful to me. But I love the idea of journeying with a whale because it, as an animal spirit ally, it's a profoundly strong and beautiful creature. Owls were big around my world last year, so if owls are showing up for you, if you're hearing owls and seeing owls, that's interesting too. I've been dreaming of owls. I dreamed of purple owls last night. Which one of you was in my dream last night? I'm trying to remember. One of you was in my dream. There were all these purple owls, oddly enough, and they had died. It wasn't nothing. It was just like I was seeing them, but so they were shedding their feathers, and I kept picking up these purple owl feathers. They looked just like barn owl feathers, but they were purple. And one of you, I cannot remember who it was for the life of me now, was in my dream saying, "You should keep one of them." And I was like, what do you mean? Like the wing? Something like that. I was asking, like, should I keep a wing? And you were like, no, you should keep the whole thing. And I think that's when I woke up. But there were these little purple owls, a little bit lighter than the color of my chair. And then I dreamed of a blue owl when I was in, which I told you about when I was in the Yucatan in August. So, yeah, no, I mean, just like owls have shown up in my dreams. They're not like roaming around my house, which we have lots of owls where I live, so that's not uncommon, but they've been showing up in my dream time in these like wild colors. So do you guys have a sense now of like some archetypes that are meaningful for you? Because it'll come up later, and then when I'm drumming, I'm kind of hoping that some of these archetypes will emerge for you too. And then it might be fun for you tonight. You bought a purple owl pop today from Starbucks? Maybe it was you that was in my dream. What's a purple owl pop at Starbucks? Like, what are we even talking about? Like, I want one and I don't even know what it is. These owls were little too. They were like that big. Little small feathers. It's the very strangest thing. You woke up to a lion licking your face? It was me. I love lions. Lions are one of my favorite creatures. I absolutely would have a lion if it was legal, no matter how dangerous it is, and I would have it in my house. And I would just tell people, if you're coming over, have a lion. His name is Leo. Don't piss him off. You're free to come by. And I would just look over at Leo and imagine Leo just looking at me and just being like, Um, okay. So what's really fun is if you're listening to me and you're like, I have no archetypes, I've never thought about this, nothing comes to me when I meditate, like I have no idea what you're talking about. That's actually in a way almost really cool, because then tonight can be this kind of like playground of like, so if you were gonna have one, like if it was legal to have any kind of animal in your house, butterflies, beautiful, they're migrating through. The monarchs come through Southern California on their way to Michoacan, which I think you know. And so there's monarchs all over my backyard right now, as there are every year. This year, I'm thankful that none of them have been dead. Usually there's at least one or two monarchs that fall asleep in my yard. But it happens to everybody where I live, because some of them just don't make it, to Mexico. But they usually pass through Southern California. Sometimes there'll be swarms of them, and it actually is kind of scary if you're driving, if there's a monarch swarm. Hawks, anteaters, tigers, dragons. Would you have a tiger in your house? That's Teddy the tiger. Don't make him mad. Don't look at him. Wolves, pandas. Pandas are cute. So think about it, and if you don't have one yet, I think that's actually kind of a cool opportunity. Okay, it's important for you to look at page 1 of your worksheet, because there are arguments about where shamanic drumming began. And what I want to say is nobody owns it. Nobody owns drumming. We can trace it back. On every continent, in every culture, on every timeline, somebody had a this and a this, or a this and a this. And they were everybody. So people in indigenous, cultures of Central America will say, well, drumming began here, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, really? No. And then, people who are like true Siberian, like North Asian, will be like, well, of course it has Siberian origins. And it's like, potentially, but hold my beer. I can still trace it back earlier than that. We know that the Mesopotamians were drumming. We know that the Egyptians were drumming. We know for sure that the Greeks were drumming, because the Greeks had a goddess of drumming, Cybele, right? Okay. So Pacific Island kava ceremonies, right? So definitely Indonesia, all the way through Indonesia, all kinds of drumming. We've found buried drums. I think I told you like the really cool story when my parents moved to this area where I live, which is the South Bay of Los Angeles, and they lived in Palos Verdes, but there was a family that owned a little piece of land between what's known as Palos Verdes and San Pedro, and there's a kind of a coastline right there, and the family, one of the original families that lived there when it got settled this time around, owned a house right there, and they came down the cliff and they dug up all kinds of stuff. So they found like rattles and arrowheads and all kinds of stuff, and drums, and there were all kinds of like indigenous tools, which they probably shouldn't have had, probably should have been in a museum, but they had an estate sale when my parents moved here. And my dad to this day goes, oh, like, I can't believe I went to that estate sale, and like, if I'd known what you were going to do when you grew up, and like, he's like, I just went there and there were drums and hides and tools like that they dug up off of like the cliffside and stuff. And he's like, it was all for sale for like nothing. They didn't really know what they had. And he's like, I didn't know what to do with it, so I didn't buy any of it. And I've told him, like, I'm actually kind of glad that you didn't. I don't think I would have. I don't like the idea of like having tools that were not accessed in a, not handed down, not sourced, God knows how, right? So I don't know that I would have really have loved to have inherited those things or been given those things. I try to be really careful about where and how I come into tools, especially things that are very, very old, and because I think the spirits of the ones who create those tools kind of live forward in them. But that coastline, Lauren Conway, has a huge indigenous lineage, and a lot of shamanic ceremonies were held at the base of those cliffs. And so anyway, long story short, there were drums coming up on the Pacific coastline here, because it's said that coastline is a vortex of energy, which if you've been down there, and Lauren has, a lot of you probably have if you live here, there is a place between Palos Verdes and San Pedro, and kind of that coastline where the water kind of moves in two directions, and it's said to be a vortex. Yeah. And it's true. Madonna said a man with a stick on a log from the very beginning. You don't need a log. You got a leg and your hand, right? So we've been drumming since the beginning of time. So there's evidence of shamanic drumming. Siberia, Central Asia. This is page 1 of your worksheet. The Tungus people of Siberia are actually the original shaman. They're known for their traditions involving drums. It's called kettle drums, made from animal hides, played to enter altered states of consciousness. So again, what kind of characterizes them or differentiates them from what we know about the ancient Greeks? Although we know that the ancient Greeks were entering altered states of consciousness too. And by the way, all these folks had plant medicine. They all had psychedelic material. I mean, we also know this, right? The ancient Greeks were working with hops, fermented hops, which is a psychedelic. That's what the Temple of Demeter and the Hiera Odos and that whole, which Socrates and Plato and all of them took that long walk on fermented hops and went to Funky Town. So they were drumming, they were entering altered states of consciousness through drumming. We also know that every culture has had access to some kind of psychedelic material, and oftentimes the drums and the psychedelics were used in tandem. My experience, by the way, and I've told you this before, I can really go deep into meditation just drumming. And if I do drumming and breath work together, having worked with psychedelics, I don't know that it's any more powerful. To this day, the most powerful transcendental meditation experience I've ever had was a breathwork journey, above and beyond anything I've ever done. So it just kind of goes to show that you already have kind of built into your system and with your basic tools the capacity to have a really beautiful journey. So when people say, oh, do you need all that stuff? My answer is no, not really. And I can get you somewhere really good if I have enough time, if you're willing to relax and soften enough, and if you let me drum for you, I can get you somewhere good. There's also some really cool apps in the App Store, shamanic drumming apps, where they do what's known as the callback at the end, which I'll show you that tonight too. There's different ways to do a callback, but a callback is a rhythmic pattern of drumming at the end. So you do your shamanic drumming, and then a callback is a stop-start rhythmic pattern designed to interrupt your trance state and bring you back through those states of consciousness. So we drop down from beta to alpha to theta state consciousness, and then we go back through the callback from theta to alpha to beta. Does that make sense? Indigenous Americans, including Plains Indians, of course, the indigenous Americans and Plains Indians had drums and were engaging in shamanic ceremony. For vision quest, for communion with spirit guides. African traditions, for sure, right? I mean, we know that shamanic traditions in Africa, all parts of Africa, by the way, and they're all different. We were talking about that in the live gem show last night. You know, it's the African continent for a lot of people feels very homogenous if you haven't studied it, but it's composed of these most vibrantly diverse countries, and each one of the African countries has its own spiritual lineage and tradition, and sometimes gods and deities and concepts of spirit guides and ancestral work, and it's very potent, and they not to be confused, right? So we've talked about that too. Ancient Greece for sure, the Romans too, and then of course the Indonesian cultures, which again, let's not confuse Indonesia and put that into one big envelope, right? I mean, the Hawaiian Islands are very diverse, right? From Samoa. So it's like, and you can't, are there similarities? Yes, but are there differences? There are. So the Pacific Islands, Indonesia, which includes Sumatra, right? We talked about Java. They all have their own indigenous practices too. So at the bottom, the drum itself holds symbolism, rhythm of life, heartbeat of Mother Earth. The original drum beat, and the easiest one that we'll talk about tonight, is literally the And you can literally affect someone's metabolism, like their heart rate and their blood pressure and their rate of breathing and everything by drumming. So you can, yeah, and thank you for talking about the Caribbean, by the way, too. Cuba, very different from Dominican Republic, very different from, right? I mean, you can't compare. But you literally can, through drumming, you can really start to, when you play the heartbeat slowly, drop someone in to a really relaxed state and then start to increase and build and build and build. And in a group, you can actually see people, like if you're watching, if you've got people in a lie down situation, you're watching the kind of the rhythm of the chest, you can like actually see people starting to like breathe with the drum. It's a very potent experience too. Okay, on page 2 of your worksheet, connecting with nature. Most drums are made of natural materials. Ours is, I think, part synthetic and then part natural too. A lot of drums are made with natural hides. Some people like that, some people don't. I'm a natural hide kind of girl, but I also have huge respect for people who, and I have some friends who are vegan who will still work with a drum with a hide. It's just they don't want to consume animal products. So some people are vegan and they don't want any animal products. They want vegan leather for all of their, clothing and purses and things like that, which I totally get. And then some people are just more about what they're physically consuming in their bodies. And so there's a whole spectrum of people. Usually they're made from natural materials, including sinew, right, which is the connective tissue to hold the drum together. This is how our indigenous ancestors made them. They didn't have synthetic sinew, so they had to use the actual connective tissue of the animals, which in the indigenous traditions, the idea is that you don't waste any part of the animal, right? So working with the connective tissue allows you not to, why would you throw anything away? A way of honoring an animal in a lot of indigenous practices is to the skin, the fur, the connective tissues, the muscle, the meat, the everything. Because if a life of an animal is taken, a way to respect that life is to make sure that nothing is wasted. If that makes sense? Yeah. Nose to tail. So that's part of the practice too. Sacred geometry, obviously drums are usually circular. I have a drum at home that is not, and that's with intention. It's called a shield. It's called the shield wall. So it was built to, it's almost in like a soft triangular shape, and it has a different tone. I didn't bring it because honestly, I didn't want to move all of my drums from my home to my office space today and then have to move them all back. But there's lots of different shapes of drums. If you search shamanic drums on Etsy or eBay, you're going to find just a treasure trove of things. And the one thing I will tell you, I don't get anything for promoting my friend who owns the Etsy boutique called Shaman Drums. It's a Shaman Drum or Shaman Drums, Veloslav's boutique, but he is the best I've ever found. I am in love with Katie Janelle because she made my Colibri drum, and she did an incredible job too. It was cool because during the Ukraine conflict, the height of it still going on, but Veloslav lives in Ukraine, and so it was really nice to be able to support his family, and he was still able to make and ship drums during that time, which was kind of remarkable because he's in Kyiv. So there's different shapes. Unity, community. Playing drums in a circle is really sacred and beautiful, and it's amazing what happens in a drum circle. We've done some here at SG with Team SG and brought you in live to kind of experience what that's like. When we've done live retreats, which we haven't done in a few years because of COVID and since, but when we did that, we usually did some kind of collective sound circle situation. There is a synergy and a magic that happens when you are creating music in a collective group. And then transcendence, transcendental experiences, alter states of conscious awareness, taking you out of ordinary reality, taking you into what we call non-ordinary reality, which is your loopy-doop stage of just not being really fully present here, which is one of my favorite ways to be. And the older that we get, and the more experiences we have, the less we need tools to do that. We call it dropping in, and it's very easy for me to drop in. I mean, Anything can do it. And you can also train your mind with music. Like my playlists have a little hidden agenda of doing that to you. I have a playlist for Paxton because he was a really hyperactive, bitey puppy. We called him Baby Piranha. He's been trained out of all of that, which is really great. And he's grown up and he's not so bitey. But he was a little piranha-y. Sometimes he still looks at me and goes, and I'm like, biting is your love language, you little piranha. But he doesn't bite me or his toys or anymore. But anyway, when he was a baby and he was super bitey, I developed this playlist that literally was transcendental for him. It absolutely took him into non-ordinary reality where he was not so piranha-y. And that was really good because the piranha bullshit that he was on for the first 2 months I had him was really tough. I have bruises to prove it, but I would put the playlist on, which is it's my Ram Dass playlist on SoundCloud. And he literally, even now, like he hears it and like his ears go floopy floop and all of a sudden it's like the batteries kind of go out of himself and he falls asleep. It takes like 2 Ram Dass songs, about 2, to get him to just like shoo whoop. So if you have kids having temper tantrums, you can also use music like that because it shifts their frequency and it really does sort of drop them into non-ordinary reality, or what we would call a deeper state of conscious awareness. So from beta to alpha to theta, because animals go from those states of consciousness just like we do. So the shamanic beat tends to be, this is page 2, middle of page 2, by the way. Is your puppy still bitey? Yeah, redirection and is my training technique, right? You can't bite me, but you can bite this. and then I also used a little, some people use shock collars, which I'm not in favor of that, but he had a beep collar, just a little with a remote that went beep. So when he would go, I would go beep, and he would go. And then, so now I don't have to do that anymore because he knows not to bite. I'm big about dog training because my thing is I didn't want him biting anybody else. You know what I mean? So it's like I was just like, this isn't gonna work, friend. Beep beep. Beep beep. So anyway, the beat is repetitive. It's often around 200 to 220 beats per minute. If you're doing fast shamanic drumming, which I will show you, and I'm gonna actually do different speeds of drumming for you tonight, and then I want you to kind of decide what you like. Some people like a rhythm with a sort of break in the pattern, which is my preference. And I, over time, have developed my own kind of cadence that for me is my default. And so that's one of the reasons why I like to also drum with music, because it gets me out of my default shamanic drumming pattern and gets me sort of attuned with a different rhythm so that it keeps me not on my toes, but like helps me to not get into a habit or a routine, if that makes sense. This particular number of beats entrains the brain's neural activity, but so do the other ones too. And that's one of the things I wanted to say. So entrance into altered states, guidance and connection, protection, healing, ritual, ceremony, and then personal growth and transformation. So bottom of page 2 is all the reasons why drumming is so good for you. Going to my notes, what the shaman does is actually a subtle form of hypnosis, right? The process of shamanic entrainment, which is what we call it, of me taking you from where we are now to a deeper state of consciousness is neurological. And in the hands of a good practitioner, it's very intentional. So again, everything comes down to intention in magical practice. So if you're like, well, what's the difference between, some dude drumming on the corner and me trying to connect you with archetypes and drop you into a deeper state of conscious awareness? It's my intention to do that. And I think, when people come to you as a practitioner, drumming is a cool tool to have in your toolkit. You have a lot of tools in your toolkit. You have singing bowls, and you have tuning forks, and you have your voice, right? You learn to use your voice as a tool, right? So you can modulate the tone of your voice and how much breath there is between the words and how fast you talk in order to bring people into a deeper state of awareness. I tend to have a deeper voice, which is strange. I don't have a higher pitched voice. My voice has always been kind of low. And I am aware sometimes if I talk faster, I can get people to focus. As a teacher, I was sort of conscious of this. And if I slowed down the cadence of my voice, then I could also get people to relax. So if I'm in a room full of people and there's a lot of stress and tension, and I use my naturally lower voice and slow down the speed and create more intentional space between the words I'm saying and breathe myself, then I can watch everyone relax. If everybody is not taking something seriously, I can increase the rate of speech and put less space between my words, and I can watch the intensity of the conversation increase if I want to create that. Does that make sense? So your voice becomes a shamanic tool. My Mercury's in Cancer, so I have a natural capacity to do that, but I've also been very intentional about it over the years. When I'm nervous, I talk too fast. When I'm relaxed, I don't. And so noticing that, and also looking at where Mercury is in your astrological chart is important. Well, thank you for saying that. I've had a lot of people tell me that over the years, that listening to me, they enjoy it. You know, like they'll turn on a video but not look at it, just to sort of hear me talking or listen to a guided meditation, which that's really sweet feedback, because it is very much intentional how I inflect and use my voice. And you can do it too. So it's not like a special gift that only I have and you don't have it. It's really just about becoming consciously aware. And how for me as a grammarian, because I used to teach writing, I think of breath as punctuation. So where you use your breath allows people to take in the thought you just expressed. And where you don't use your breath, you don't give people a chance to process the information. I will say too that there's also in my world something known as the meta conversation. We've talked about this too, which is the stuff I'm not saying with my words that still gets transmitted to you. And that's a skill to develop. Kind of fun if you're a teacher too. Like I can hold a meta intention, which is that today, like my meta intention for today is that I know this is a really stressful week. It's stressful globally. It's stressful locally. It's stressful because of the eclipse. It's stressful because we're at the end of the year. If you follow the Celtic path, which I do, this always feels like more of a new year than January 1. So there's a little bit of like all of that with the eclipse and the end of the year and all of these different transits and all of the planets that have been retrograde slowly going direct between now and the end of December. It's like I know that there's a lot of tension, and so my meta intention for today's class is actually to relax you and help you feel mindful and connected and seen and held and appreciated without saying that. So I use my voice, so I hold that meta intention, and then I focus on the class content. But if I do my job well, right, then I am able to accomplish both of those goals, which is at the end of it, you go, I learned a lot, but I also feel better. I feel more relaxed. I don't feel as stressed or as anxious as I did when I came in, or I feel more physically well, right? And I also hold that intention for myself, which is why even if I'm not feeling well, I try never to cancel class if I can avoid it, because I tend to feel better just after teaching because I'm holding that intention for you, and as a byproduct, I get to enjoy it as well. Yay. Okay, so you are, what did I want to say about that? So some shaman, I just want to, in case you see the word, okay, because I like to train you to how different people talk about different things. Some shaman don't use the word archetype, they use the word visual avatar or avatars. And I think it's interesting, especially now I'm seeing this like kind of more modern wave of shamanism where they use avatars instead of archetypes. The people I know who use the word avatar are talking about archetypes, so I don't think it matters. But in case you see the word avatar in a shamanic context, that's usually still a reference to archetypes. And they talk about visual maps and visual cues. So again, when you're in a deep trance state, which is a semi-conscious state of awareness, you're not like fully alert, but you're also, you can still hear what I'm saying to you, and you could answer the phone and do things if you needed to, so you're semi-conscious. You're just a little slower, probably. Kind of like the energetic equivalent of like a glass of wine, right? You can still do what you got to do, but you're a little slower on the uptake. That visual map becomes more clear. And that's why you can, especially if you close your eyes. In shamanism, the less input into your central nervous system, the more intense your visual map becomes. So closing your eyes, right? Not touching anything, just kind of keeping your hands by your side. Because again, touching things is taking in information, looking at things, listening to things, smelling is taking in information. So one of the reasons it's nice to burn something like a little bit of like your incense for this month is it narrows the field of information. So there's only one smell that you're smelling, as opposed to smelling everything around you. It focuses your sense of smell in one direction. So I'm totally still obsessed with these spoons from yesterday. I can't move on. But this is your Living Magic incense. So yeah, focusing your, it's like, okay, so that's going to bring us, as this was created with intention, that's going to bring your focus into the field more directly too. And they will also refer to the drum as a tuning device, because it's tuning your sense of conscious awareness to a certain intention, frequency, or state of consciousness. Okay. I'm reading your comments a little bit as I can, so it's sweet. You know what's funny is I don't get it, but none of my publishers have ever wanted an audiobook from me. It's like, no, if you want to do that, that's yours to do. And so because I never had a deadline on it, I never did it. But I should do it. You know what I mean? It's just about like committing the time to sitting down and doing the audiobook. But I was always like, hey, I mean, literally my first publisher, I'm like, do you want the rights to an audiobook? And they're like, no, people aren't really into that. And I'm just like, your people are not my people. So I should do it. It's just, you know how when you don't do things, like if you don't have a deadline, you don't get things done? There were deadlines to write the books. There just weren't deadlines to record the audio version. So one of these days, in my free time between 12 midnight and 2 a.m., I'm going to record audiobooks. But I should sit down and just do it. I will one of these days. Thank you for reminding me, because honestly, I forget. I'm just like, oh yeah, I was going to do an audiobook. How come I didn't do that? Oh, because nobody wanted it. And honestly, I don't know that it's like a profitable thing, but it just would be cool to have it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, it just would be cool to have it. So it's not even about like, oh, let me do that to make money. But definitely, like, the publishers didn't think it was profitable. Okay, so I want to talk about this. And do you want this? It's kind of a shit show. It's the 4 directions with like all of my personal notes of like I don't know. I'll tell you about it, and if you decide you want it, I'll take a picture and post it. But honestly, it's probably better just to write it yourself. It'll make more sense, because my notes are just a jumble bumble. Honestly, you'd probably look at it and go, well, I probably should just write my own. So what you'll want to do is just, if you're taking notes, just do a north, south, east, west, leave space, and fill in as we go. And then if you're not taking notes, our team will take notes for you, so it'll all be there. But some people like to do their own thing. It's just just don't come to me and go, hey, I couldn't read that. It's just like, yeah, I told you weren't going to be able to read it. Okay, I'll take a picture of it and Karen will post it. There's actually 7 directions. And again, this what I'm talking about right now, when we launch next year's programs, you will see how this actually Tonight's class is an interesting segue in ways that you can't imagine, because I would never have really come up with next year's programs if I hadn't had the experience that I had to inspire it. It was inspired during my trip to Mexico with the shaman that I worked with while I was there, through that experience. And it wouldn't have happened otherwise, which is really, really cool. It's cool. Traveling for me has always been this, and working with these people who walk between worlds has always been this, like, oh, that's what I need to do next year. So this is an interesting segue into much broader conversations that we'll be having in 2024. So there are 7 directions, and the way I want you to think about that, I meant to grab an octahedron, and it's okay. If Jared's watching, don't rush to get me an octahedron, but you have to think about energy on 2 planes, right? There's the horizontal axis, which is the north, south, east, west, and then there's the vertical axis, right? Which is the above, below, and then you in the middle, the within, right? And so these 2 planes are operating at all times. This is why mathematics, which is not my favorite subject. My kids still laugh that I got suspended in high school for raising my hand and telling my teacher that I thought the devil invented math, and I got detention. It doesn't matter. I'm still proud of that moment, because he was like, are there any questions? And I'm like, I don't have a question, I have a comment. Go to the principal's office. But so I don't enjoy math, but math does operate on a bidirectional on bidirectional planes, and that's part of why mathematics makes sense, and that's part of why the only class I ever enjoyed was geometry. Interestingly enough, I enjoyed calculus actually in college, but I enjoyed geometry a lot. And the reason I enjoyed geometry so much was it took our very flat, usually 1 or 2 dimensional way of thinking about things and showed me multidimensionality, right? That there are all these different polyhedrons and multi-shaped, multi-sided, and that's how our universe is. Our universe is polyhedral. It has different sides and facets and dimensions and timelines and frequencies and all this stuff. Like it's so much more than we can take in with our human senses, right? So as it is with the directions. So when we talk about north, south, east, and west, we're really talking about like something very flat, like a map. Like maps are flat, right? But what the map represents is not flat. We've solved that dilemma through history, right? Yeah, like you could actually see geometry, right? Of like, oh, look, math that I like, as opposed to algebra, which no me gusta algebra. Okay, anyway. But there is also a world above you, a world within you, and a world below you, okay? And that isn't north, south, east, west. That is the other axis that's always operating. Does this make sense? So right now I'm focusing on north, south, east, and west. And then it'll be fun next year to go into the other dimensional planes with you to explore the guardians, if you will, or the gatekeepers, or the magical correspondences of that other axis, because those are both operational all the time. This is why sometimes I'll call in like the guides and guardians of the north, south, east, and west, but I'll also call in the guides and guardians of the upper world, the middle world, and the lower world, because that's the other set of pieces of the puzzle. Okay. Also known, some people call it the up, down, and in. The up, the down, and the in, right? So that's the vertical axis. Okay. I will share my shit show of notes with you. But for now, I'm going to walk you through them, because some of you do like to take notes, and so I'm going to walk you through, and then we'll get to drumming. In the north, and this is only a beginning. I mean, this is still, even though this for me was like last couple weeks of my brain drain, every time I thought about something related to the directions, I would write it down, which is why it's kind of messy. There are flowers that correspond to the directions. There are colors that correspond, which we'll talk about. There are times of day. There are seasons. There are animal allies that correspond to the directions. There are emotions that correspond to the directions. And so this is why the directions are so important to me in my practice, and why I'm building them so intentionally into next year, because I can't imagine my world without archetypal and elemental thinking. It's the way I live. I mean, I'm so conscious. I'm conscious in my diet. to the extent that I can be, about like the, or my living environment, right? Like how the elements look, where they are positioned directionally, are the elements balanced? All of that is so important in my life. And I think it's part of creating, I mean, we've been given these, maybe it's my magician card life path, you know what I mean? That because the magician is standing in front of the 4 elemental tools, right? The chalice for water, and the wand for fire, and the sword for air, and the pentacle for earth. And the magician card represents the fool learning how to manifest through these 4 basic elements that make up, the core of our human experience. So in the North, if you want to have a real lived experience of this, and I'm going to drum to the directions when I'm done walking you through. Actually, maybe I'll drum while I do it. I should do that. I'm going to do that. So let me take a minute to introduce the drums I brought tonight, and then I will. I brought 2 drums in particular. I almost brought my students in Soul Shift when we were studying the Angela Faux symbols that came to me during ayahuasca ceremony, had a drum made for me, and I almost brought it, but there's only so many drums you can play at a time. So I chose 2 drums really intentionally tonight. The first drum I love for tonight because it says the same thing in Hebrew that it says in Arabic. I thought, what a... it's handmade. It's signed by the artist who lives in Tel Aviv, Shira Haivri. ShiraHaivri.com, HAIVRI.com. Anyway, in Hebrew and in Arabic, it says, "Be at peace, not in pieces." With the feathers all the way around the edges, which again, I'm really surprised that Paxton and Bodhi have all these years, because I leave this drum just out in my crystal room and have left it alone. Be at peace, not in pieces. So I think that's really cool that it says it in both languages. I've had this drum for years. I didn't buy it for this occasion, but just given the conflict, I thought that's a cool drum for tonight. And then my Colibri drum, which is handmade and hand painted and burned with light language inside by Katie Janelle. Took 7 or 8 months and was really a lot of the inspiration behind our Living Magic program for this year, which is why the hummingbird is everywhere. It's actually a hummingbird and a crow. And I didn't tell her anything really about me, which she wanted it that way. And we didn't know each other at the time when I commissioned her to make a drum. And so it just crazy turned out that it's like crystals and 2 of my favorite birds and the flower of life and all that stuff. So I'm going to use this drum to teach you the directions. One of the things I want to say about shamanic drumming, as you get better and better and better, one of the tests, I guess, of your skill is to be able to talk and drum at the same time. And when you're first learning how to do that, it's easier if you speak at the same rhythm as you drum. You don't want to sound like you're doing that, because as you get better, you want to be able to just talk and drum and not have it be aligned. But at the beginning, it's easier if you drum and create space around the cadence for your words. And what I would say too is when you're first learning how to drum, just drum, and when you start learning how to talk and drum, just go slowly. And then you'll be able to speed up and speed up and speed up until, and that fly is still here from last night, by the way, the one that was driving me and Sam and all of us crazy last night is still here. So if you see me swatting something, it's a fly. Take a deep breath. Yeah. I love it. Kaz asked her guides, right? Just help me. Help me talk and drum at the same time. can walk and chew gum at the same time. It's a special gift. So you can drum and talk at the same time too. Some people like to hold their drum at the top, which is nice too. It doesn't really affect the tone. And if you're going to be talking for a long time too, it gives you kind of an armrest, because holding it at the back by the handle can be kind of tense on your fingers. And if you're seated, that gives you a little bit of a benefit too. If you're walking around a drum circle, you kind of have to hold it, or you got to hold it, but you want to hold it. You don't want to hold it by the. You don't want to hold it by the threads, because your fingers will. That's hard. So usually, good drum makers will give you a nice handle to hold it by. Okay. So I'm gonna. You can use both hands, but I'm not doing that tonight. So I'm going to walk you through, we're going to welcome in the guides and guardians of all of the directions tonight, and I'm going to call all of the correspondences out. I'll share my notes. This will be in the notes for you too. And then I'm going to drum with some music for a little while once I've called in all the guardians. And you can either drum with me, or you can kind of tune out for a little while and use it as a chance to meditate on this eclipse energy. Actually going to start in the East. We usually do a lot of traditions. It's more the Native American traditions, the indigenous traditions that start in the East, because that's sunrise. So it's, because each direction has a time of day, it just makes sense to start at the beginning of the day. So as we turn the wheel and talk about the directions, we're also welcoming in, whether you want to call them the gatekeepers, the guardians, the keepers, the elemental allies, spirit guardians. I don't think it really matters. I think they are what they are. They are there. I've seen them in meditation. And by the way, you're noticing kind of my default cadence for shamanic drumming. There's a stronger beat, softer beat, strong, 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 strong. See how you kind of start to fall in? I fall in too. So in the East, that's sunrise, right? Element of air. That's the season of spring. In the cycle of life, this is birth. Isn't that beautiful? It's the entryway, it's the passageway. Gotta open my notebook actually, sorry, because I put the animal spirits on the other page. Sorry. Hold on. Don't go anywhere. And the animal spirit allies are all the winged ones. Winged ones with wings. Most of them. Hawk, hummingbird, eagle. Some people put spider. You might see spider as east. They brought me an octahedron. Thank you, Jared. So, in the East, too, we talk about growth cycles and the elements, right? So, the seed, the very beginning of the growth cycle, is the direction of East. In the realm of mythical creatures, dragon. Now, you can also see dragon as the element of fire in the South. So it depends on your practice and how you see that. The color, yellow. Some people see it as like a peach and orange. All the colors of sunrise. In the cycles of the moon, this is a waxing moon for most practitioners. In the cycle of wisdom, this is the apprentice. This is the Fool in the tarot too. There's always tarot correspondences, right? I think butterflies are in the east. Let's put butterflies in the east. I mean, again, I wish there were like really hard and fast rules for all of this, but the beautiful part is you can make the rules. In the herbal world, and we'll go way deeper on this later, sweetgrass, right? Welcomes in sweet spirits. There's a very youthful, very innocent energy in the east, right? This is not the highest level of wisdom. This is the Fool starting the journey, right? The knapsack is light. We're not packing heavy. We're just taking what we have, and we're building our wisdom as we go. Okay. And then we turn the wheel. We always go clockwise when we talk about the elements and the guides and the guardians and the gatekeepers and the doorways to the four directions. So when we go to the south, element of fire, and again, just for our purposes tonight, we're welcoming in those guides and those guardians to be with us. And I'm going to ask them too as we go to show themselves, right? So Dan is seeing eagle flying, which makes sense, right in the east. When I turn south and we head toward fire, what do we see? Okay. So in the middle of the day here, we're noontime, high noon in the south. This is the season of summer. This is the full moon. The mythical creature, Phoenix, rising from the ashes, right, which makes perfect sense. In the stages of life, we were born in the east. We're a child now. This is our youth. This is exploration. In the stages of wisdom, this is the student. We were the apprentice before, just beginning. Now we've been in class for a couple of years, right? Now we're starting to build our wisdom traditions. We have the slithering ones in the south. We also have the trickster animal spirit allies in the south, and we have the creepy crawlies in the south. So snake, scorpion. I love putting beetle here, scarab here. Wolf, coyote, lion, cheetah, tiger, bumblebee is usually in the south. The color's red. In the growth cycle, we're sprouting. We planted a seed. Now it's sprouting. Right, life has begun. And again, in the Native American traditions, Lakota traditions, this practice is a prayer. So honoring the wisdom and calling in these guides and guardians is not just a meditation, it's a prayer. So we should talk about the blessings of the East, which is higher sight, clearer vision, right? Rising above the circumstances of your life. And I think the blessing of the South is transformation, bravery, courage, strength, right? Okay. You can put dragon here if you want. They breathe fire. I think they like the South. I always think of snake. I always think of the strength card here for some reason, and you might feel differently. And of course, all of the astrological signs have correspondences. So the fire signs here, the air signs we should have talked about, right? Aquarian energy over there, right? Gemini energy, which we love. Which one am I missing? And then in the south with the fire signs, Leo, Aries, Sagittarius. Libra. Gotta forget Libra. And then as we turn west, element of water. Welcoming in those guides and guardians and companions and gatekeepers and wayseers. Find your word that you like. I don't know, for me they're very real. I can feel. And I feel them come in from the directions as I call them. It's like whew, west comes in from over the water, south comes up from Mexico, right? East comes over the mountains. So I can feel you coming over the plains, and then the north comes down for me from the Pacific Northwest, so I can feel like whew, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, Canada, right? Colder winds blow. It's beautiful. I mean, just thinking about like geographically where you are and where they come from. So in the west, sunset, season of fall. In the growth cycle, we have full leaves. We have buds. In the moon cycles, this is the waning moon. It was the full moon in summer and south, by the way. In the growth cycle, human growth cycle, we are the adult now. We're grown up. We are the mother, the father. In the wisdom cycle, we are the teacher now. Right? We've gone from student to teacher. In the herbal world, we like to think about cedar. It's very parently as opposed to grandparently for me. It can be grandfatherly. And then in the west, we have the finned guides, right? Dolphin, whale. I also put raven and crow in the west because I think of west as governing the intuition. It's maternal. Some people put raven in the north. Again, this isn't to spark a debate. It's just like wherever it feels right for you. Frog, swan. A lot of people put jaguar, which I love jaguar medicine. They're so stealthy, right? I also think of owl as being in the west for me. But some people, again, put owl in the east. Anything finned. All your fish guides and keepers of fish wisdom. Whale's always a big potent one for me in the west. And then in the north, we turn the wheel one more time. Now I put cow in the north. Tell you why. You can put cow wherever you want. Cow's one of my favorite animals. I love cows. My dog looks like a cow. That's part of why I love him. In the north, this is the direction of Earth, and we welcome in those guys, guardians, gatekeepers, wayseers. This is midnight, the wheel of time. Moon cycles, this is your new moon. It's dark up here in the north. In the human growth cycle, these are the elders. Grandfathers, grandmothers. In the wisdom cycle, this is the master. You've gone from teacher to master now, haven't you? Right, this is the crone. Gives me goosebumps. I love it, actually. The north is very powerful for me. I think it's because I have so little earth energy in my chart that I like crave the north, because I love this idea that there's these gatekeepers of patience and protection, and just feels so lovely here. In the herbal world, copal. I also think of frankincense as being in the north. In the growth cycle, this is the flower. We've gone from bud to flower. Slow moving animal spirit allies here. I try to categorize them for you. Tortoise, cow, bear, elk, buffalo, dogs in the north. You can also call them the kings. I have a friend who calls them the kings of the elements. It's kind of regal. But then I'm like, why not queens of the elements? I mean, it's like, you're gonna do one, why not do the other? The majesties of the elements. You can choose your word. And for sure, there's goddesses and gods and all kinds of deities that align. Like I said, the tarot cards that align. Hierophant for sure is going to be and I think of the high priestess as being in the west. Duality in the west. Okay. So with that, all guides, guardians, kings, queens, and gatekeepers of the elements are here. They are here. They are here. They are here. Now, if we were journeying, yet most dogs are fast. I do like a nice, slow, older dog. I do enjoy that. I don't have that right now, but I will. And Paxton's old. He's going to be an old grandpa, slow dog. I just know it. I got ways to go. So if we were journeying, maybe you are. I hope you are. I hope this has been relaxing for you. I'm actually just going to play for another minute or so without talking. So if you weren't journeying, you can kind of drop in. And then I'll do what's known as a callback. And you'll know when I'm doing it. And it's designed to bring you out of this syrupy little place that we are. This slow, syrupy, sexy, dreamy, nowhere to be, nowhere to go, nothing to do, be here, place. When I do the callback, you'll know. Because you'll go, oh. So stay there, or go there for a minute. See what archetypes are coming up for you. Don't force it, just what wants to be with you right now. Archetype wants to reveal itself for you for the eclipse. And sometimes, because you gotta run back, run, wherever you were. You gotta run home. learn to really like, drumming will become much more intuitive for you if you just learn to like really like be intimate with your drum. You know what I mean? Like, this is not, you don't sit and just like hold it and you're afraid of it. You know, it's like you gotta really like now. Are you back? Come back, come back, come back, come back, come back, come back, come back. And whenever I'm like, I hear the call back, I'm always like, ah, I gotta hurry. Wait, I'm not late for anything. Oh shit. Wait, maybe I am. I was gonna try to find something to show you. I follow a lot of cool Instagram accounts. I hope I saved this I'm gonna save that in a certain folder to find it when I'm with them, and then watch, I probably didn't. Poop. Did I not? Let me just see. He's one of my favorite percussionists online. Give me like just 10 seconds to see if I can find it, because I swore I had it up last night and I wanted to show it to you. If I can't find it, I will post him in your group. But he shouldn't be too hard to find. Give me just a second, because oh, here he is. Yay! I love him, and he's a DJ, so he travels all over the world. I don't know him. I mean, sometimes I connect with people like, you know, Ben from Temple Step and Mose and Mati and stuff. Like, I've actually come to know them by sharing their stuff online and messaging on Instagram. But this guy I don't know. I just think he's really cool. So I'm going to show this to you real quick. I could watch him, literally, I'll show it to you one more time. Here he is on the frame drum. And he just layers it. And the video is much longer. The Instagram account is JARL underscore Jarl, JARL underscore FLAMAR. He's hot. I think he's hot. He's also an amazing DJ. He DJs all over the world. I mean, like, I've seen him post things from, you know, now he's in Istanbul, now he's in Egypt. So Jarl, JARL underscore FLAMAR. And the whole video is longer. If you go to Instagram and watch him, it's longer. And like, I just put it on loop and just watch him. So, cause he layers in like more. It ends up being like 4 or 5 different kinds of drums. So I think he's sexy. Now, isn't he hot? I think he's hot. Listen, a man with a drum for me is kind of like checks 2 of like the most important boxes in life. Come on, Jarl. Layer me in, Jarl. Now, on SoundCloud, I'm just going to play a couple of these songs for you that are on the Drum Circle. Message him and say, hi, Jarl. We all just were like fangirling on you over at Sage Goddess. Like I said, there's 7 songs here, and these are just like go-to songs if you want to drum along with some music. There's a lot of other great drummable tracks on the other playlists, but these are some of my favorites. So I'm just going to play, and then I'm just going to show you how drumming to music can kind of change the way you drum. This is Byron Metcalf, called Heart Warriors. Wait for it. You gotta find it. Can you hear it? hard to stop. And then this is Spirit of the Tribe by Intichi. This one's harder, but it's beautiful. And then Icaro de Sanación. This is an ayahuasca Icaro, but it's fun to drum too. This is Yamanyo, who I love. Yamanyo is friends with Mose and Mati and all those people. It travels with them, and this is a great one to drum to. It's called Agita Pura. It's the Joaquin Cornejo remix. It's fun to dance to. It's a great song. I have a whole Yamanyo playlist on SoundCloud. And then this is called Healing World Music. It's just fun to these are all in order from the playlist. This is called Intrinsic. It's a beautiful song too. Starts really slow. Teaches you to listen and feel. And then Medicine Chant by Anila, which is really beautiful too. And she's just hot. And that concludes my playlist. And I gotta be honest, I don't really want to stop playing drums, but I gotta leave some time for questions, and I don't want you to feel like I didn't. So I hope you enjoyed tonight's class a lot. And what questions do you have for me? Because that means you gotta stop drumming too to ask questions. It sounds so quiet in here now. I'm gonna just turn some music on in the background, I think, just because it got weird for a second. With no music. I'll leave Anila on in the background. I don't have to have silence. Honestly, my life is very rarely silent because I have music going 24 hours a day. At home, my playlists are all looped. So you don't hear repeat songs. Some of my playlists are like 24 hours long on SoundCloud. Ambient sounds is a great one to leave on all the time. There's not a lot of lyrics. You can run it in the background. So yeah, she and Jarl are gonna hang out with you in Dreamtime tonight. She's dinner, he's dessert. Deadova is fantastic. Yeah, if you have other artists that you love, Deadova is fantastic for drumming. What is it? Song of the Bone People? I've got Deadova on my playlist, so you will definitely enjoy drumming. I know, I could do this class for days. This class, like, oh, let's just go. What else do you have to do tonight? I always know it's almost over when I see Jared. He did bring me the octahedron, though, and I do want to show it to you, because not because you need to have one or buy this, but just because it's cool to show you. This is basically what this brings to life in its sacred geometric form, what I was talking about with the directions, right? So you have, like, on this side is the north, south, east, west, right? Like, you can see the cube, but then when you turn it, that's why the octahedron is so powerful, because then you have the above, the within, and the below. And this is actually the shape of your soul, right? Your soul spins like this, right? Your field spins. Everything is, that's a Hermetic principle. All things are in motion, right? Everything vibrates. I can look like I'm sitting very still, but I'm not. I am vibrating. You are vibrating. I have a frequency. You have a frequency. We all have a frequency. Having a big shaman drum, I think, is important. It is something I would, like, put on your list of things to have. We have some drums at Sage Goddess that have good tone, that are a little bit bigger. We wanted to keep your tools affordable so that you had a drum. And I do love this little drum because it's so portable. Like, if you're going to a drum circle, in your bag it goes and you're off. Like, you will have a tool. You know, you bring that in your Advil and shake it. But it is nice to have, like, big gong drum magic. Oh, I love it. Christina's baby's kicking. I drummed all the way through my pregnancies. There's never a quiet moment. In my opinion, what's the best animal skin for a good drum sound? Honestly, I haven't found that hide makes the difference. That's the drum maker that makes the difference. I love this song. This song was played, by the way, in the series Vikings. So if you're ever listening to it and you were a Vikings fan like me, Team Ragnar, this song, she was one of the artists on the soundtrack. That's why she's so badass. I want to be her when I grow up. Yeah, you are always in motion, even when you're not in motion. That's how it goes. Okay, thank you, Lisa Taylor. We just turned it down, and I can turn it down more if you need me to. Your dog settled down. That's good. And then, like I said, try the Ram Dass playlist. The Ram Dass playlist is, it's funny because, I adopted Pax in April from Atlanta. You know the story, and he's turning 8 months old, and he's huge, and he was so teeny. You can't fly dogs in airplanes, easily. He was like 15 pounds when I got him home, and I listened to that playlist all the time with him, and I thought to myself, because you develop neural pathways around, sound associations with times in your life, and there will be a time in my life, right, when he's older and stuff, where I'm sure I will not be able to listen to that playlist without crying and just thinking about him being a baby and like being a Biderton and a baby piranha and calming down when he listened to that when he's like an old man dog or not with me anymore one day. It's like it's amazing. So. And there's a playlist on my SoundCloud and some songs that I was listening to right before my mom died that I still can't listen to. I just can't. I'm getting closer to being able to listen to them. But it just happened to be this playlist I was making at that time, and it's too much for me now. So music is powerful, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, for sure. Where's the best place to get a vegan hide drum? I don't know. Do you guys know? Because I don't. Most of my drums, all of my drums, I think, are animal hide. So, do you guys have a good recommendation for vegan hide drums? I would really love to know. I'm guessing Velislav could make a vegan hide drum. Some of these guys like him, it's the lineage thing, right? Like, he learned from his father learned. They've passed this drum making passion and wisdom down through their lineage. I'm guessing he could tell you where to get one, and he's a super sweet guy. I'm connected to him on WhatsApp, so if I remember, if you remind me, I'll try to send him a WhatsApp message and see if he can tell me what to tell you. Oh yeah, Elena said, you drummed me into a deep state today. I'm gonna nap after this. I love that. Yeah, and Kaz had the same experience with music. It's so powerful, and music is really important. And the intention of the artist and the frequency that they were at when they recorded the music and all of those things are part of the alchemy of the experience that you have when you listen to it, right? So that's why it's. I still listen to like mainstream music. I've joked with my team before, like they were laughing at me because my music turned on in the middle of a meeting and it was a Drake song. And it's not great lyrics, you know what I mean? It's just not great. Like, I can't hear very well, so sometimes I like listen to the song and I'm like, what did he just say? I sound like such an old woman. He did a what to who? But because my parents never listened to my music, the commitment I made is that when I'm with my kids, they can play their music. So we all call her DJ Zoe, but like she takes over the car. So I actually know like most current music, but it's not like when I'm by myself, or just cooking in the kitchen, it's not Drake. You know what I mean? That's not what's happening. But if you turn on a Drake song, like I probably can tell you what it's called. Don't judge me. I didn't write the music and I'm not him. But you can judge my kids if you want. But my SoundCloud playlists are my music. That's what I prefer to listen to. You drummed your pregnant belly? I love it. Love that. Your baby's vibrating already, right? So
we have this left in stock from Soul Shift, and there's a vegan painted drum.
Oh, no way. Look at that.
I had to double check really quick because I thought it was. But...
No way. Look. Our Soul Shift drum, which was from last year or year before, I can't remember, is in stock in the vault, I think.
So, I'll put it into their
Jared will,
category for today.
Yeah, we've done vegan drums for class tools because some of our community members don't want to work with hide drums. I think we have done a hide drum for you guys, but I can't remember. I think most of them have been vegan. But if you want like a big gong hide vegan drum, then that's a different story. That I can't help you with. That you got to go to the big guns for that. Donna said this was one of her favorite classes because it was practical and meaningful. You're very welcome. And I will tell you, if you liked tonight, it's kind of a taste of what's to come. A taste. This isn't exactly what next year's classes are about. I mean, again, I'm not going to tell you, but it's super exciting. Even our team's excited about it. Thank you for that, Alexis. I really appreciate that. Let's see if I can answer any more questions. We started a couple minutes over the top of the hour, so I'm going to ring my bell in case you have to go, because it is actually like the time. Believe it or not. That was a really fast. For me, it's always fast. And again, I hope it is for you too, because honestly, the shittiest classes are the ones where you're like, is this ever going to end? And I have had so many classes, even with people I like, where I'm just like, gosh, I really like this person. This is the longest 2 hours of my life. I'll come back and finish this later. So I do hope that the time goes by quickly, even though it's not great that the time goes by quickly. Oh yeah, I do need to release the Guardians, huh? Yeah, you want to do that, Deanna Bello? If you were here, I'd be like, hey, Dan is now going to release the Guides and Guardians of the 4 directions. And you know the story about that, right? Where I didn't, and they woke me up in the middle of the night. Thank you, Martha. I am not increasing prices of classes. Isn't that cool? For the second year in a row. Didn't raise them last year. It's different, but it's, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Now's not the time to do that. So Guides and Guardians. And you can still do the thing where you sign up for the year and you get to take 2 months off or whatever. We're going to do that still. Yeah. Yeah. I can't guarantee I can do that forever because people's pay goes up. Cost of living. I mean, holy shit. Guides and Guardians. Thank you for your attendance this evening. We release the Guides and the Guardians of the North. We always start where we ended. Right now we're unwinding the circle. We wound it up, now we unwind it. So we release the Guides and the Guardians of the North with gratitude. Thank you for patience, protection, steadiness in the North. We release the Guides and the Guardians of the West. And I always imagine, just like I told you, I see them coming to me from the direction, I see them leaving me in the direction. Yeah, I'm glad you asked. I should have just told you that so you could plan, but this is not the year to raise prices on stuff. Not in my mind. Are you kidding me? So back to the North, back to the West. For emotional healing, renewal, and that little bit of maternal tenderness this evening in the West. Releasing the Guides and the Guardians of the South. Back to Mexico they go. Thank you for fire, transformation, courage. And then releasing to the East. Back to the East we go. Thank you for new beginnings, new visions, new vistas, higher sight, clearer mind. Beginner's mind. And thank you to my beloved Deanna Bello for not letting me forget, because I was very much in the moment. Aww. Your comments are adorable. I just appreciate you so much. Lola said she'd have to be surgically removed from classes. That's the sweetest thing. I appreciate that so much. As long as I breathe, I will teach. Can't imagine. To me, it's just sort of who I am. Let's see if there's any other questions. It's tough times, man. You know? I really don't know anybody who's like, no, this is just the easiest, quickest, bestest days of my life. I just haven't really been hearing that. If it is, that's great. I mean, there's a lot of people in my life who have amazing things happening right now, but I think everybody, it's like a little bit of like a, you ever cooked with a like pressure cooker? They're not very of the moment right now, but they make a lovely chicken parm. But it just feels like this like pressure cooker moment. It's very interesting. So cheers. Thank you, Lena Cole. I'm glad tonight was invigorating. Now, I want you to keep doing it. You know, the thing with drumming is it's like anything else. Like, you get excited, you do it. I mean, if it resonates with you, if it's not your jam and you prefer to do other things with your time and your space, that's great. But the more you drum, the more you're going to start to feel that, like, oh, I just want to, you know, you want to pick it up and you want to, and it's okay. Keep a drum where you listen to your music, where you relax, and just pick it up and play. If you have a community, play for them. You know, if you have kids, play for them. Get them drums and get them playing with you. You know, it's they'll appreciate you for it, because it teaches a different way of holding space. And I think it's really important. So, all right, cheers, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Jared in front of the scenes and Karen behind the scenes and all you do. And it takes a village. This was our last class for October. Holy shit sticks. It's going to be November now. We do get to see each other quite a bit more. So Friday is the eclipse. Hello, darling. So I'll be live with you at 5 p.m. Monday is Elder Council. That's our quarterly meditation with spirit guides. I love doing Elder Council near Samhain, because it's just the veil is thin, so it's easier to get in touch with the folks, the cool kids on the other side. And then Wednesday is our proper Samhain ceremony on November 1st. Yeah. And then when is class? When is session 1? Is it the following week? For November? I think it's the following week because we got a long-ass month. Just get ready. It's a whole bunch of me, so we don't get a whole bunch of breaks. I mean, unless you want them. You can watch class whenever you want. That's the other side benefit. But cheers, and I will see you Friday for whatever that brings. See you then, guys.